Hi, my name is Sanchez Cañas, and today I'm going to be doing an oral exposition on the basics of English poetry. More specifically, I will be talking about and explaining tropes. I will define what a trope is, and then we will be talking about different kinds of tropes. Then finally, I will be give a brief conclusion, and then we will have the bibliography. See, let's start. So we well, well, a trope, also known as figures of thought, is a literary device that makes use of figurative language to make descriptions more evocative and interesting. See, they can be employed in order to say one thing while artfully and immediately implying another. See, let's jump into different kinds of tropes. Well, first we have the simile. As the name suggests, a simile main aim is to add a similitude or comparison between two ideas or objects using the linking words as or like. Here we have an examples by young kids in which a bright star is compared in a simile with a nature's patient sleepless eremite. Now we have the metaphor. In this case, the comparison dispenses of those linking words and plainly refers to the object as if it were the same. We have two main components. We have two main components within a metaphor. The first being the tenor, which is the object described, such as the teeth here in this poem called There's a Garden of Her Face by Thomas Campion, which is full with metaphors. But here precisely we can draw attention to this one, to a pair of double row, in which the poet refers to it when he says an orient pair of double row, he means the teeth of the lady. And then in this metaphor, we will have the we will have the tenor, which is the object described, in which would be the teeth, and then the vehicle would be this orient pair of double row. So the vehicle is the idea called upon when referring to this object. Well, now we have the metonymy. The metonymy is when something is associated to an object or an idea stands for this idea itself. You have another example here with the young kids and in this poem, the note to a nightingale. And here we have for a drop of vintage, in which vintage means to be also wine. See, instead of wine, young kids is decides to you to say vintage instead. And well, now we have the zenith degree. Zenith degree is a different kind of metonymy, a variant of it, we could say, in which one part of an object or idea stands for the whole thing of that object of or idea. It represents it whole. Here we have an example in Still Walks in Beauty by Love Variant, in which a heart here embodies the person itself, the lady, the the woman he's talking about in the poem is represented best by the heart. And even though he's only part only a part of the lady, the heart represents her, and it also adds some attributes like kindness and all that, which are the connotations that the heart has. So then we have the pun. Well, puns are usually used in wordplay, and are very prolific in the sense that you can really play with them, and you can make a lot of uses like with them. They depend on on the similarities in sound and the difference in meaning. We have two kinds of puns. Like first we have the homonym, we have homonisms, and then we have homophones. Here we can see, and then I'm going to show you some examples. Here we can see in this sonnet 135 one example of an homonism by Shakespeare. He takes advantage of the fact that will has a lot of different meanings, and so he plays with it. I used one of the different meanings in each sentence, like will being the verbal the verbal um, the verbal tense or his name or the noun. And so we can see that a nomonism is when when it's a pound when that plays with the fact that a word has the same spelling but different and same pronunciation, but it has different meanings. And then we have the homophones. Well, here we can see that spelling is different. We can see nimble souls. I have a soul fleet. But they are pronounced this. They are pronounced the same, but they are pronounced they are, they are pronounced the same. They have different spelling, and is this is another example of a work of Shakespeare. In this case, it would be Romeo and Juliet. Then we have the concept, which is when a metaphor is explored beyond that usually, and is extended even more, and so it becomes the main idea of the poem. Here we have an example by John Donne, and we have the poem is called the flea. And here we can see that um, the flea acts as a vehicle and is instrumentalized in order to represent uh, how the how the lovers are are together now, and they shouldn't be embarrassed of their affairs since the flea has sucked the blood of them both. And so and the flea has become he received the marriage bed, and so is it's an statement of metaphor, and it's very we can see the case of how the flea becomes a stand metaphor in itself, and thus it would be the concept of the flea as a marriage bed. Okay, now we have personification, which is when an object, a concept, or a concept that is a trap or a traps or an animate object is given human qualities and is characterized as if it was a human. We can see here an example of a poem by Andrew Marvell called The Definition of Love, in which it exemplifies perfectly with my love is a verse this is And we can see how um, love, despair, fate start possessing human qualities like for fate with jealous eye does see, even though fate actually cannot see because it's an abstract concept. Here in the personification of fate, it's giving these human-like qualities, and now it can see. So next we are going to talk about apostrophes. Apostrophes are vocalized address inside a poem, um, and are directed to inanimate objects, abstract concepts, or an absent figure. We can see here an example by William Blake in the poem "The Tiger," when the poet starts talking, addressing to a figure, a he. Did he smile his work to see? It being he being God, and so we see the apostrophe within the poem. Then we have the allegory, which is now again another stent metaphor. This time the events and actions that happen within the metaphor and in the narrative are separate series of events and actions um, beside the poem. We have the example of the Fairy Queen, written by Edmund Spencer, that which is in which he um, performs this allegory, giving the main characters a virtues and an allegorical rule, like it could be the Fairy Queen, which is the Queen Elizabeth is supposed to be, or the other characters that stand for virtues like honesty, for example. And then we have finally a paradox. A paradox is a set of seemingly contradictory concepts that reveals a hidden or unexpected truth. Here we have another example as amplifiers. It being in my heart leaps up, in which we can see something absurd as a child being a father of the man, which later is an idea that is later is elaborated upon, but at first sight seems absurd and contradictory and that it doesn't make any sense. See, that would be in conclusion, we could knowledge that this kind of workplace and tropes and figures of thought are very useful in order to make poetry and literature more artful and imaginative, and has also defamiliarizing effect within the reader. And here we can see the bibliography I have used in order to make this overall presentation. So I hope you have enjoyed the presentation. Well, that's all then.